It's that time of the year where you probably have some new toys to play with. But that doesn't mean we're not going to take care of the ones that we already have. That's what we're going to go over today on Welcome back, bicycle people. No new product to show off today. We're just going to be doing some maintenance on an SDG Tellis Dropper Seatpost. Why you haven't seen this one before is I've actually owned this seat post before I even started doing any of these videos, so it's about 2 years old now. Just now needed some maintenance. We're going to go ahead and open it up, show you what's inside of it, show you how easy it is to do so you can do this yourself. Let's get this seat post out of the frame. Let's get a look at it. Okay, now we have the post out of the frame. We'll do a quick talk about this. SDG Tellis Seatpost, available in 30.9, 31.6, and 34.9 millimeter diameters, from 100 millimeters up to 170 millimeters. Like I said, I've had this for over 2 full riding seasons now. It's been on a hardtail bike, and it's just now started to develop a little bit of play in it. Dropper wise, it's still rock solid. It has given me zero problems in that aspect, but we're going to go ahead and open it up, mainly because the rebuild kit that comes with the seals and the 2 guide bushings is about $20 depending on where you get it from, so it's a very cheap service. The only thing cheaper than preventative maintenance is no maintenance, but that could just end up with a broken seat post. That's what we want to avoid, so we're going to go ahead and open this up. And this is going to be about an 80% rebuild because I don't actually need to replace the cartridge inside of it. But we'll get to that when we open it up. Okay, before you start, make sure that you have all the tools that you're going to need. So anytime I'm working on mountain bike parts, one thing I definitely want to make sure that I have is some isopropyl alcohol for cleaning off surfaces. Pretty much everything we have on bikes is use some kind of lubricant, which is horrible when you get on your brakes. Renders the pads useless, also causes a mess, makes dirt stick to it. So I like to start off by cleaning everything with isopropyl alcohol. Use some good shop rags, not just some basic paper towels. These are good, heavier duty, disposable. You can use, rags that you wash. Just make sure they're good lint free. You don't want to get that stuff inside, especially suspension and moving parts. Nice little shop hack. Cut a plastic hanger, put the roll on there. That way you got the shop towel. Then it makes it nice to hang. I got the shop towels right in my reach. Okay, moving on. You're going to need some Allen heads, mostly a 2.5 millimeter to get the top of the head off. And if we were doing the full service and removing the cartridge, you'd also need a 10 millimeter to get the bottom connector off, and a specialty tool that will come with the cartridge when you purchase it, but we don't need that right now. And also a strap wrench to get this collar off. If you need to, find one. Don't be stubborn and grab a pair of channel locks and try to grab it, or vice grips, or whatever West Virginia socket set tool you think you can use. This is very thin aluminum with a rubber seal. If you damage it, pinch it, it's not going to work right. Okay, next, you're going to want some kind of lubricant whenever we put everything back together on the bushings. I have this tub of, waterproof grease that I've literally owned for 10 years because this much grease is probably all you'll ever use in a lifetime. I also have some other lubricants and greases that are better on rubber seals, some Buzzies. I got some Shimano. And then you're going to need the toolkit itself, the bushings and the new seals that go inside the seat post. All right, I will fast forward now through some of the boring parts. Oh yeah, disclaimer of why I didn't show you taking the dropper post out of the bike. Well, because if you need to see that part happening and need to know how to do that, the best bet is to not even attempt opening this up on your own. If you can't get a seat post and the cable operated actuator out, have someone else do this. Trust me. Okay, I've taken the seat off, taken the whole seat clamp off, cleaned it down really well. Remember, the more you clean the parts ahead of time, the less chance that there is for any kind of cross-contamination inside the lubricant, and then also the cleaner you will be while you're working on these bike parts. Okay, on the top of the seat post, if you can see there, see how the silver dot in the middle there? That is the top of the hydraulic cartridge that's inside, and once we put it back together, that will become more important. On the back of this, might be a little hard to see, this is where the 2.5 millimeter bolt that holds the hydraulic cartridge into the top of the post is. We're going to go ahead and undo that. Only needs about 2, maybe 3 turns total. Use the strap wrench if you need to. Lock it on here. And just break the collar loose. You don't need to use it to finish getting it off. Alright, once it completely releases, there's about a ½ inch of threads there, so it takes a little bit. Slide it up. And now we're going to start pulling the seat post apart. Up at the top here, first piece out, that's going to be the top bushing. As we pull the rest of it out, you can see we're left with the bottom tube and the main hydraulic cartridge. This is the top of that little silver button that we saw sticking through. And I'm going to go ahead and clean this up so we can get a better look at it. Okay, now that I've got this cleaned up, we're going to change the view. And this is going to be the top part of the seat post with all the parts you're going to rebuild. In order, we're going to take them off. There's going to be the bottom glide bushing, 2 keyway bushings, and then the top bushing, which has a split in it, and then the main collar, which also has the weather and oil seal. That one takes a little bit of force because you got to get it back over this lip. Now, this is a good time, once you clean it off, to get a good close look at it. Still, you know, always a little bit of oil on there. And we can see at the base here, when the seat post is in the all the way up position, a little bit of wear in the anodizing. I mean, parts do wear out a little, but we can see where the guide bushings go. That looks good. Pretty much some of the anodizing is worn off, but no gouges and no scratches. That's what you want to see. Alright, so here's the basic rebuild kit. And everything's pretty much going to go back in order, opposite of how we took it off. We'll start with the main collar and seal, which you can see the replacement one has a little bit of a more stout seal, has a bigger retaining spring on there to keep the wiper a little tighter. I'm going to be careful putting that on. You don't want this seal to roll in. I'm going to go ahead and slide that all the way to the top. I'm going to take the main collar bushing. I'm going to put it on. It's very easy because of that split. Go ahead and slide it all the way to the top. Now, for the 2, keyway guide bushings, I'm going to load these grooves up with a little grease to start, because that actually makes it easy. Holds them in there. You don't have to worry about losing them. The grease itself holds the bushing in there. And then we're going to put on the bottom glide bushing. And you can see up close here, it's not completely round. There is a little bit of flats. You're going to want to line that up with this bushing. Has these little teeth on it. When you get that lined up, that's in there nice and tight, doesn't rotate. Those also hold the keyway bushings in there. Now that that's all together, I'm going to go ahead and just liberally apply grease all over this post. Had a fair bit on it whenever I took it out. I'm also going to add some grease inside the dropper post itself and all around this seal, pretty much around anything in here that is moving or going to be sliding on anything. After that, clean up my hand. Again, the cleaner you are while you do this, the better it's going to be. Now, here's one of the important parts when putting this back together. On the back is the measurement lines for how far it's inserted into the seat post. You're going to find that 2.5mm bolt that's on the rear of the seat post clamp, and that's going to face the measurement marks on the back of the seat post, and that's going to help you line up those bushings. So the rear bolt lined up on the same side as the measurement lines, so that way your two keyways are lined up. Okay, and you'll know everything is together and as far down as it can be, because we're going to make sure, and we're going to look for the silver button again. That's the top of the hydraulic cartridge that's going to poke through a little bit so you can see it. You want it to be as flush as it can be. Then we're going to go ahead and tighten down the 2.5mm bolt. Now that we've got everything together, everything internally is greased up, we verified that the hydraulic cylinder is bottomed out. We're going to go ahead, take our 2.5mm, tighten up the nut back here. Don't crank it, it just needs to be snug in there. And then you don't have to do this next step, but I used the regular waterproof grease for the body, for the main keyway and bushings. Those are sliding parts. I'm going to use a little Buzzy Slick Honey up here at the top, mainly just because I like how it behaves with rubber seals. It works great. I use it on suspension. I know even a lot of paintball guys swear by this stuff. It works really well for rubber O-rings and slides. Then we're just going to go ahead and put this on by hand. You do not need to use the strap wrench for putting this color back on. You'll probably end up putting it on too tight. These are fine aluminum threads. It's not structurally bolting anything together. It is literally just holding down and keeping this seal on there. So we're just going to tighten that up by hand. Make sure it's on there good. Yeah, that one's kind of dirty. Take another towel. A little alcohol. Give everything a nice rub down on the outside. Alright, and we'll spare you the next part. We're going to go ahead and put the seat clamp and seat back on, put it back in the bike. Let's make sure it works. Okay, one last step before we put it in the bike. We're going to inventory the parts that came out and the ones we put back in to make sure we're not left with any extras and we didn't miss anything. So we have the top collar and rubber seal, top bushing, bottom bushing, and the two keyway or glide bushings, whatever you want to call them. And we have no leftovers. That's a good sign. Now we're ready to go back in the bike. The seat post is back in the bike. The cable's hooked up. Everything's adjusted. We are back to with the new bushings. We have, there's a minimal amount of play. Every seat post has a little bit of movement, but it's back to being pretty solid. Kind of just a little bit of a shake, but no visible movement. You can just kind of feel it. I'm going to call that good. It was $20 rebuild. The SDG Tellis seat post. I can't recall the retail price off the top of my head. It's been a great seat post. Like I said, this is things over 2 years old now. That's the first time I've even opened it up and gave it any maintenance. Everything looked pretty good. A little bit of anodizing wear, but for half the cost of some of the other ones out on the market, it does what you need it to do. You push the lever, it goes up and down. How much more do you want? Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed what we just did. Even if you do not have the SDG Tellis seat post, this video may be of use to you. There's a lot of other models that use a similar design and a similar build. Some of them have copper keyway bushings. There might be some other differences. But if you have a cartridge-based seat post like this, the rebuild process is probably going to be fairly simple, and I'm confident that you can probably do it yourself. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for joining me. Maybe we'll get to ride together.